It's game time. We are here live from Burbank, California, as we continue to move forward in finding the 4 players that will be playing at BlizzCon. Welcome into the studio one more time, as we're here to talk about the upcoming game Stats versus Dark. Todd, you talked a little bit about it already. I'd love to hear some more thoughts. If you have any, or ready to join in as our Protoss expert, you can just be Nate, as there's a Zerg and Terran playing. Sorry.
The thing is, they're 2 of the best players from their region, so they've got a little bit of history. I think Stats is up 5-4 overall, but this counts, games from the previous expansion. I think on Legacy of the Void they're 3-3, so this really goes to show that they're trading series and maps, and it should make for a very good matchup. Which I think in the past we've seen. I think it was something in the semi-finals of some of the biggest leagues over in Korea. So it should be a cracker, as you would say.
I mean, focusing on Stats and his performance in his first best of 3, I mean, obviously we've seen a lot of him over the entire year, but I always feel that, when BlizzCon comes around, people prepare a little harder and they really put a lot more emphasis on their build orders and what they feel comfortable with. And if you look at his series against Snoot, like what can we take away from it? The first game, I think he got a tiny bit unlucky. He played on Apotheosis, and I think he just kind of rolled the dice and hoped that Snoot would be aggressive. His build order was catered towards dealing with any sort of Zerg aggression. Yep. Zerg didn't attack, he just died. Like, there was really not that much he could do about it on that map. The second map, however, it wasn't a very convincing victory. It was, if you just look at the game, because he had ran across the map and he won. But he won because Snoot expected him to play a macro game, and he went for a 2-base all-in. And no matter how you look at it, a lot of 2-base all-ins are just not super impressive. The final game, however, I do think Stats look very good. That's what we expect from a Korean Protoss, multi-prong, adept aggression, with buffers in place, some cute moves, dropping a stasis. That is the one game where I will say, okay, if Stats brings that level of gameplay towards the best of 3 today, then there is a good shot that he can make it very difficult on Dark. But the first 2 games, I've got mixed feelings, so I'm kind of favoring Dark here.
I mean, from what you said, I want to bring out that you're going to make it difficult for Dark in a way that we're expecting Dark to still win it anyway. Is that
just because it wasn't good enough from Stats? Like,
okay.
It was good, but it wasn't super convincing. It included a 2-base all-in, which only worked because the Zerg didn't scout it. And of course, that's also because Stats did a lot of stuff right. I mean, Snoot is a good player. He will scout if he's not busy dealing with other stuff. Stats made damn sure that he was busy dealing with other stuff. So it was good, but still, it's still a 2-base all-in. And I just can't take that much away from that victory. The last game, however, was good. I don't know, Sean. It's going to have to be better for Stats. Like, it was good, but he's going to have to step it up.
I mentioned how in the last time that they played, I think Stats was being fairly passive and taking it to the late game. It was Frost cross map, so maybe that was a little bit more encouraging towards that. So this time, I want to know whether he plays as aggressive as he did against Snoot with maybe some 2-base aggression or not, because that's going to make for completely different games, and it also depends on the maps.
All right, well, the other side of this coin is a player that we're expecting to really come out again. And look to challenge for this title. We've seen what Byung can do. We already saw what Dark can do. But here he is coming up against a player that could give him difficulty, as these guys have said. What are your thoughts with Dark?
It's just scary because he's been so good all year long, right? We've been following Stats, but Dark he's the guy that's picked up, the big championship, made it to the finals of the second one. And, even that's already gotten super weird because the guy that beat him is out of this tournament already. But Dark has just been a scary player to follow. He's been very good as far as the meta thing goes. When we talk about things like Hydra Bane throughout the course of the year, dealing with some of these Protoss compositions, Dark is just a very smart player that can kind of make any adjustments he needs to. However, I mean, I guess as much as I could say about ZVP, he does come in as the stronger player in my opinion, but I don't really know what to expect out of him here. I think that he just plays his A game. He should be the favorite.
You can expect Banelings, I think.
That's what I'd like to see.
I mean, I thought the build that he used on the first map against Drogo was really cool, right? With the aggression early on of Frozen Temple, with the Roaches and Burrow as well. Like, those kind of build orders, I think, are just super good in the current meta, where it's all about 1 gate Twilight, 2 more gateways, put on some aggression, and then you want to expand, and then suddenly you have no Robo yet because you're investing your resources in other stuff. I love to see more kind of stuff like that out of Dark. There's build orders that have fallen a little bit out of fashion, but actually there's no reason for it to be out of fashion because Burrow play, I mean, it brings us back to, let's say, Hydra Lilba, right? You remember 2015 towards the end where it was all about the Protoss moving out and then trying to expand, no detection, and then suddenly Hydra would have one Burrow circling, denying that expand. I think that kind of stuff is really cool and hope to see more of that.
All right, well, the game is pretty much ready. Both players are patiently waiting up there. Let's go into then the predictions of the day. Kev, we'll start with you. Where do you think this is going and who's moving forward?
I think Dark is too solid, and I think his his mechanics are too strong at the moment, and also just the game understanding. But I can see Stats surprise him on a good Protoss map, but I say 2-1 Dark.
Stats gonna put up a fight, but Dark is just too good right now, and he's reeking of confidence. So I think he's gonna show he's gonna be a 2-0.
Okay.
2-1 Dark.
All right. Okay. Nice and easy from the couch this morning. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll be hearing more from these throughout the day. They'll be also casting some games for you a little bit later on. But it is time to start the first match. It is going to be Dark versus Stats. You don't want to miss it.
The StarCraft II WCS Global Finals is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
What's up, guys? Welcome to our first match today at the WCS Global Championship. I'm Tasis, joined with Artosis, and we have a very exciting series coming up.
Yeah, we certainly do. Stats versus Dark, a rematch of a finals from before in SSL. It's going to be awesome. Dark, one of the big favorites in the tournament, is the best Zerg player in the world right now, but anything could happen here with Stats.
We're going to jump right into it, guys. This is game number 1, Dark versus Stats. Introducing our players in the bottom left, in the red, he is Dark. And in the bottom right, in the blue, our Protoss player, he is Stats.
All right. This is going to be awesome. Guys, get out there, hashtag WCS 2016, and let people know that we have a lot of matches today where people are qualifying for the top 8. They're going to be playing at BlizzCon. And truthfully, the 4 players that we've kind of been circling around, the Dark, the Zest, the TY, and the Byun, these guys are all playing today. Maybe they're favorites, maybe they're not. The people they're going up against all have legitimate shots at taking them down.
Before we talk about these 2 players any further, I think we need to just talk about the map for a second, because this map has a lot of different features that make it very different and ultimately lead to very different looking games. So first of all, this bridge over here in the lower center, you can see it's very narrow. That's the fastest way to get to your opponent's base, but of course you can get that blocked off in a variety of ways, putting pylons there. So you want to be hyper vigilant there. And of course it's a small choke that you're coming out of, so you can get surrounded pretty easily. There are 2 islands at the bottom. They don't normally play much of a role, but there are vision blockers there, even for flying units. So that's something to keep in mind as far as drops come in. We don't normally see expansions taken there, but sometimes we have very long games on this map, so we want to keep our eyes peeled for that as well. Assuming the game goes on for quite a while, most of the action will be here at the top, the upper half of the map, and there'll be a lot of fighting for the upper right bases and the upper left bases.
Yeah, you know, and when it gets to the late game, a lot of fighting does happen up in the northern parts of the map.
Right.
There's a lot less drop play here, even though you're kind of close from air because of those walls on the islands and whatnot. So it's really a very interesting map, and generally speaking, it goes very, very late. It's quite hard to actually kill somebody because the short route can be blocked off, as you said. You can easily make a concave on the outside of that, not let people through. So a lot of the times we see full tech and maxed out armies here.
Also, in the very center of the map, you see there are these 2 bases. There's also this cavity over here, so sometimes we'll see air, siege units, things like that firing at these 2 bases. So although that is a pretty accessible possible 4th base, it doesn't come without its own burdens as far as holding that.
All right, well, right now, Stats out with an Adept, trying to get a little bit of scouting going on. Very common opening move. He is going for a Stargate as well, which is kind of interesting. Dark, not one to take too much damage from Oracles, but we'll see what Stats can get done if he goes down that tech route.
As we see a teching over here for Protoss, Oracle just now starting. Link speed about to finish up here. The Oracle's going to come in here, try to take out as many drones as possible. I guess ideally about 4. And after that, it'll just keep poking around, scouting, and eventually tagging units to see what's going to be coming out.
The thing is, like, Dark, basically every single game, he will get quick Overlord speed so that you just can't fool him. Because this guy is the best macro Zerg in the world. No question about that. Like, if he survives in the late game, he's almost impossible to kill. So he always makes that sacrifice, gets his quick Overlord speed. And look at that, with 2 of them already in the main base, he sees the Oracle the moment it pops out, which means he has plenty of time to defend. And in fact, the Oracle not even going to make a beeline over there. Like, stats, he's like, oh, you see the Oracle? I know I can't do damage right now. May as well just keep this over here defensively.
And of course, you can take out any Lings that would come up here and try to deny the third base. One thing about the way that Dark plays, and I would call this like Zerg proper, like, you know, if you're a Zerg player and you want to be the very best you can be, you want to strive towards the way that Dark plays. Granted, Dark can mix it up. That's why he's basically the best Zerg in the world. But they just try to chip away at you and get further and further ahead of you. And so counterattack's very important. Just delaying the Nexus, squeezing out as many extra drones as possible. And it creates a situation where anytime the Protoss leaves his base, not now but later, it's a shame on you, stay on your base, you're against a Zerg player situation. But right over here, it looks like we are going to have, we're going to have him try to push in here. This is to bait out attention while the Oracles come in and do as much damage to drones as possible.
Okay, the 2 of them run in, and together, with one of them almost dying, they only get 3 drones. A little tiny bit of miss micro there by Stats, and as you said, that was kind of a baiting maneuver with the Adepts out front trying to lure his attention. Doesn't do as well as I think Stats wanted. To have made 2 Oracles early on, and literally you've only gotten 3 drones, it's a little bit weak, but Oracles are very useful throughout the entire game.
Yeah, the Oracles are kind of funny because ideally, you want to take out a couple units early on. Now, he didn't lose them, so it's okay, but that is units that you're investing in. They don't give you, if you're not killing off drones, a big edge in the mid-game, which we're entering into right here. They can be kind of handy. But overall, Dark is just doing a very good job of holding off whatever Stats is throwing at him.
Yeah, he's kind of going down the tech routes that he likes. He's adding that Baneling Nest, something that he and Solar really have brought into the metagame of Zerg versus Protoss, a heavy usage of Banelings, especially Dark with his drops and his run-bys. But Stats is actually really preparing for specifically Dark. I'd love to take a quick look at the third base of Stats and just kind of look at that. Notice this wall-in he's made. That's because Dark, literally, no matter what, every game will try to kill all the probes at your third non-stop. And he has a Void Ray as well, which can pick off Baneling drops really, really quickly. So, you know, just Stats, he's very prepared for exactly who he's playing against.
Yeah, Stats is going into the late game here, it looks like. He's doing his pokes. He's coming here. He's doing a little bit of harasses. And by the way, we did see a couple more drones shaved off there by those Oracles. So good on him for that. But this, I think, as well as Stats is playing, is going to be pretty tough. You know, about maybe 5 minutes from now, 10 minutes from now, as Dark is going to just be huge.
Yeah, he truly is. Like, he's already grabbing some Ravagers. He's adding his lanes, getting those upgrades.
Yeah, I think he's going to get this. If he times this out, okay, no. I thought he was going to try to set up a warp in more. Because with that number of Ravagers, if he actually goes into warp mode, you could just gun that right out of the sky.
And that's exactly what he was waiting for, too. He's like, no, you go ahead. Try to warp or some harassment.
Yeah, exactly. So nicely done there by Stats backing up. Okay, Dark now entering to the point where he can start doing some harassment in his own. Up until this point in time, it was actually Stats attacking and Dark deflecting those attacks. But now he's going to start dropping. He's going to drop Banelings in 2 locations at once, hoping that with only one screen in one place at a time, Stats will miss one of these locations and lose a lot of probes.
And they are both coming in at the same time. This Overlord turns around as the Mothership Core goes off. The other Overlord trying to come in and get 6 right there. Okay, so that was a pretty good block by Stats. And in the meantime...
Oh my god!
Ooh, yeah, Oracle's up at that brand new 4th base, not really allowing it to mine and maybe picking off a few drones as well.
Nicely done.
Yeah, I would say that this was really good by Stats overall, but Dark... Like, that shows how scary he is. He actually came in from a really funny angle with one of the Overlords towards the natural.
I want to talk about that. You're always expecting them to come from, for instance, the top or just the area that has the least vision. That if they come right in over the second base, a lot of times that's just not right where your eyes are.
That's not where you're looking.
Yeah.
So,
and that's like a strat that only works against a very, very, very good player.
Yeah.
If you were just grinding on the ladder, you wouldn't want to do that. But in a situation like this, Stats has already been conditioned to respond to certain parts of the minimap over others. So that's super cool to see him do that here now.
Sometimes the most sneaky thing you can do is to be completely not sneaky at all. Like, it's really weird. But anyways, this game is just progressing kind of normally. The harassment damage has been... It's been there, but it's been minimal from both sides. So Dark is taking his 5th. Stats is taking his fourth. Notice the cannons he's adding up. He realizes that this has to go super long. He's not going to be able to break Dark anytime soon because of Dark's macro potential. But he's getting his Storm. He's going into Tempest Tech. And that gives Protoss kind of the ultimate late-game army. But Dark's Hive is just about done. He can get into Broodlords very quickly, maybe go into Ultralisks as well.
I would love to see some Broodlords over there at that fourth base. The one that's just in the middle of the map there for Stats. You see that's a very vulnerable location, especially with the gases just at the edge there. Gas is very important late game. And the fact that he might be able to poke that and shave that off is huge.
Yeah, that's a really annoying thing for Protoss, which is exactly why Stats is trying to get into Tempest Tech right now. He really doesn't want to have to deal with that. And it looks like he should be able to get into Tempest Tech just as anything comes out. And once again, look at that Void Ray doing a fantastic job trying to take out this Overlord.
Okay,
there you go.
A few more Lings than I expected to come out there, but not very impactful, that little situation there, but nicely done. Stats holding that. Now, this is also important. He wants to keep tagging clumps of the army.
If you can see where the army is, then the army is just going to be not really able to do anything. Zerg has to come in and kind of hit you when you're not ready for him, but Stats is absolutely ready for everything. He is turtling, defending everything fantastically, and while Dark is going to have some Broodlords very soon, the first 3 Tempests are popping out, and 3 more are already on the way.
I love that Stats is playing ahead of what Dark is going to be doing. He's definitely got this mapped out deep into this game. This is a pretty technical SC2 right here. So he's got the Tempest set up. We do see a little bit of harass here and there, a couple probes shaved off. I believe, actually, hold on a second. Probe count right now, it's 71 probes to 90 drones, so Dark is powering hard. And that's smart because if Dark does go into, for instance, Broodlords, which he is actually right now, and any other kind of great tech, you want to have a lot of drones mining because you need to get these technical, powerful Zerg units out there. So he's gobbling up the left side of the map very quickly.
Dude, the amount of respect they've shown each other in this game cannot be understated. Like, you normally don't see a game with this little action. Now that was quite nice with the speed banelings there, getting 13 probe kills. But like, they've done small harassments to each other, but they've both just kind of looked at it and said, you know what? We can't kill each other, so we have to just kind of keep on teching up, skimping on units somewhat, just enough to make sure that they can't really hurt us. And that's making it into what is going to be a ridiculously epic macro game. They both have crazy economies.
Dude, this
all
is
the
actually
upgrades, all the units.
This is sorry, I didn't mean to run over. This is such a great game to start off today.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going way deep into the late game.
Realistically, you're going to have to get 2 players the caliber of Dark and Stats to get a game like this, and it's going to have to be on a map like this as well. This is the biggest macro map, the map that really goes long into the late game because, again, it's very hard to kill each other here.
Yeah. Now, because this game has shifted into a very interesting direction, which we're going to have air units play a bigger role, it's important to mention both Tempests and Broodlords are not fast. They're very slow. Mothership, obviously not fast. And with Broodlords, you need to keep your army underneath the entire time. Otherwise, you're going to lose that. So we may see a lot of counterattacks, like with War Prisms and Lings throughout this game, since the main armies are either going to be used to push slowly across the map or guard against a counter push.
Well, it looks like Stats is just going to guard. What he's going to want to do is make an army that just cannot be killed by Dark. And it's kind of funny because he's going for exactly that. He's got the 6 Tempests. He's got a lot of High Templars in here for feedback and Psystorm. He's got that Mothership. And now he's going for Void Rays. And the Void Rays will be good against Corruptors, which are good anti-air. And they'll be good against any Ultralisk switches. So when I look at this, I feel like the onus is upon Dark. Like, what are you going to do, Dark, to break this army and to break Stats? Because that is a very hard thing to do against this.
There's a really odd technical rule that we're going to see play out here, unless one player falls apart and dies before we get there. But because Zerg expand more quickly, if you just look at the mini-map, guys, for a second, you cut it in half, right down from top to bottom. Zerg is expanding faster than Protoss. Now, that means that they're going to run out of all those minerals. Technically, before Protoss would, because Protoss expands slower. So even though Zerg has more bases, if the game goes on for too long, Zerg might end up spending more of his resources defending and then dry up on the map.
Yeah, the cost efficiency is really, really important in how that goes. And just looking at the armies, it looks like Stats' army is about as cost efficient as you can get against Zerg. He's getting the exact comp he wants. But what Dark is doing here, he's adding a lot of spores to slow down anything Stats wants to do as anti-air against the bulk of the army, and going for a Nidus, which I really like because, as you were saying, these armies are slow. Tempests take a while to get around. So if Dark can pick apart little pieces of the map, he can, over time, whittle Stats down.
One other thing to note, they're banking up a lot of minerals here, and that's going to shoot up even more in a little bit. Now, one way that Zerg tends to win games in the late game is after the big engagement and they've traded all these units, Zerg has to then identify what part of the Protoss army is missing and how do I punish it. And oh my god, Artie, we got a Nidus Worm.
Yes, indeed we do. Dark is trying to get something done now. I'm not sure that this is going to really be able to do damage because already Stats sees it. This is something you want to kind of trick him with and maybe hit another area as well. Doesn't do anything this time, and in fact warns Stats that this is something Dark is interested in.
Yeah, I can't say I blame him for trying it, but did not work out.
By the way, we saw some things. We were talking about kind of the overall idea of the game, but we saw, like, for instance, 3 Ravagers walk up and die. Then we just saw like a sloppy Warp Prism with 2 Immortals, and you look at this and you're like, what is he doing? Oh my god, he's wasting it. No, they actually want to lose these units.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
It's funny.
Yeah, when you get
let's
this
talk
much,
about this for a second. Go ahead.
You get this much money in the bank, right? And the composition you need changes. These units you had early on to make sure you'd be okay are no longer worthwhile in the late game. So they're trying to bleed off these units. If they can get some damage with them, hey, great, that's fantastic. But overall, with a 200 supply cap, you have to make your army as strong as you can. So you want to get rid of your early game units. If it's a game like this where there's just, you're not losing anything, you have all this money, and build into a perfect army.
Oh, we got the Nidus Worm coming right in here. Looks like he's more than prepared for this, so he'll probably be gutting this down right away, not too impactful.
Yeah, he picks off that Overseer so that the Dark Templar can very easily clean this up. And Dark is not finding any damage, but he is doing a Spore Crawler push across the map.
Okay, here we go. He's going to start poking in here. Obviously, so many spores here. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So, obviously, the Tempest can't just fly over this, but it does buy Zerg a lot of time as well. You know, Tempests don't fire that fast. Okay, hold up here. Looks like he's going to come in here and try to get some workers. Now moving in. Oh, 6 Storm right there.
Yeah, trying to get something.
Not a single kill.
Yeah. Well, you know, he's trying. He's sending units all over the place. This is something that Zerg has to do in a situation like this. Like, he's sending Lings down bottom. He's trying to split up the army of Stats a little bit because it's really what we call a death ball in StarCraft 2, where you make this army that perfectly complements itself and is almost impossible to stop. But if you can get it split up, it loses a lot of its power.
Okay, harpooning some of those Void Rays in here. Going to be gunned down. But, you know, Protoss is still continuing to press forward here.
Yeah, this is exactly how you're going to end up winning a game like this as Zerg. You use the Vipers to abduct in units that are expensive so you can kill them off. A nice fungal going down there as well. The thing is, the High Templars are the counter to this. You want to have the High Templars storm and feedback anything that comes to the front, but then the Broodlords are the counter to that. The Broodlords kill High Templars very quickly, and then the counter to that is cloaking them. So it's a funny thing where you have to, like, there's a big dance between the Protoss and the Zerg side.
Now, here we are once again. He's just trying to shave off units. It's like what Artosis was talking about earlier. Eventually, you can't, you know, obviously the game won't let you make more than 200 supplies, so then you have to identify what parts of your army are actually useless, send them out, try to do any kind of damage you can. And we've even seen some odd games where people get into a situation where they're like, I got to get rid of 20 probes.
Yeah,
I got to actually go send 20 of my workers.
As you were saying, Dark had 90 workers before. He's not going to want those all game long. Like, eventually, he'll probably want to lose some of them, and we might see him make those into buildings. We might see him send them across the die. It's hard to say.
So this is not all StarCraft games are like this, but this is one of the odd games that not all pro gamers are good at. These guys are probably the best of the best at it. But it gets kind of funny when you're both maxed out and the money is rolling in, and you got to figure out, because, you know, a lot of times people would look at this and say he has so much money, he's going to win. Look at this, we got 4K just with minerals alone for
they
Dark,
have such big
and 3K now. But just because you have that much, it gets very, very technical. How do you spend the rest of that? And you have to make that decision to spend that many minerals and gas in the matter of a few minutes.
Look at this income advantage graph. You can see that those 90 drones that Dark has been sitting around for so long, he's just had a better economy the whole time. But this does go back to what you were saying before, Tasteless, where you know, eventually he will mine out his side of the map, and then it's just about cost efficiency. Because, like, Stats will eventually mine out his side unless Dark starts to kill him.
So when this game started up, I was saying we're probably not going to talk about it, but it might be a factor. There are 2 islands on the bottom of this map. Let's not forget about that. And those may be the last bastions of resource to mine from.
Yeah, and
So we want to keep our eyes peeled for that when we get into the late game, because if they do mine out the top of the map, then it's going to be down there at the bottom where the final battles are going to occur.
It's funny with the gold base as well. It's like he's trying to take the gold base right now. There's no way Stats is going to let him do that. If you have one more base in your opponent in a situation like this, like, he can have been much more cost efficient than you, but you just mine more so you can still win. So they really, like, you want to make sure your opponent doesn't get an additional base or 2 over you, or you absolutely can lose. All right, we have the first really big battle coming in right now. The Corruptor's being spread. Void Ray is being charged right now and sent forward. Some Psystorms come down, but the Ultralisks doing a great job against those High Templars on the ground. The Corruptors trying their absolute best here to pick off these Void Rays, but the Void Rays doing way too much damage.
Now, I want to point out, as this was happening, look at the supplies at the bottom really quickly. Darkset already remaxing out again. He's rebuilding his army to be exactly what he thinks he's eliminated already from his opponent. And this is a key moment here for Dark, as he has to decide, what does he have and how do I exploit that?
Yeah, and what he is going for is 36 Corruptors. You can make units quicker with Zerg than you can with Protoss. So he wants to remax immediately on anti-air, take out the rest of those Void Rays, take out the rest of those Tempests, and then win on the ground or in the air just because he is swarming Stats.
And it looks like we may have some action over here in the center of the map. The army now coming out, and it seems like this army's a bit disjointed. Coming in so many Banelings, Storms blanketing the map.
Oh man, those Storms going all over everything. There are a lot of Void Rays, but that Corruptor count is out of control and easily taking down these Void Rays. Some Archons coming in, the natural predator of the Corruptor, so they do have to turn around.
And look at the bottom right here. The supply, once again, shooting back up here for Dark as he's going to remax out, trying to break the army here of Stats. But Stats sees a window where he can come in here and try to punish this expansion. That's going to force Dark to engage.
He has so many Corruptors right now. He has to turn some of these into Broodlords. Sure, he's making Zerglings and Ultras, which will do well against Stalker Archon overall, but too much of his supply is actually caught up in Corruptors. And if he doesn't turn a bunch of those into Broodlords, I feel like there's not going to be any way to break the ground army.
And here's what's funny. When you have a ton of Corruptors, it's actually harder to get rid of them. It's one of the hardest units to get rid of. If Protoss doesn't want to kill it, they don't actually have to attack it.
Absolutely.
So right now, it looks like Stats is actually going to take this moment and try to push forward. If he could take out a few more of these bases and then maybe secure the top right, I think he could very easily win this game.
Oh, Stats is doing a fantastic job right now with this transition back into a ground army after losing everything in the air. Where are those Broodlords right now? He's just keeping Corruptors. It's as if he expects for more Void Rays to be coming or something like that. But really, this is just a ground army from Stats.
I think the game plan here is Stats takes this out and probably goes back and defends. Although I guess he could, if he wanted to, try to end the game. But I think that might be a little, I mean, for the stakes that are being had here, I would say that might be a little bit risky. But
you know, both of them are getting pretty low on their banks. Stats does have more army right now. And Dark actually has very little income. He only has one well-mining base, and even that one is going to be going away pretty soon. So Stats has a big advantage. But the thing is, if he loses that army, he can't fully make another one. He has a bank of 2,000, 1,000. That is not enough to remax.
Storm's coming down now. He's getting chased back here. Most of the links are gone. That means the Ultras are going to take the damage. Beautiful blink there by Stats on top of the Ultras, so they cannot run away. And I think this may be the killing blow. GG!
Wow, what a crazy game, ending very suddenly there at the end. You know what happened was Dark made 36 Corruptors. He assumed that Stats would back right up into Air Toss again because Air Toss can be an ultimate composition. But Stats didn't. He just was like, okay, I'm going to make Stalkers, I'm going to make Archons, and we're going to fight with those. So Dark had a huge waste. He had way more anti-air than he needed.
I want to highlight this just one more time. If you're in a situation where you have to eliminate your army to get different units, I mean, we're seeing this happen back and forth there where they're just kind of throwing units here and there to free up some supply to then get the proper army that they want to have for the next phase of the game. If they make Corruptors and you don't want to kill it, it's actually like nearly impossible to get rid of them.
Yeah.
You could just right,
like,
they
kill them
fly
yourself
over your Stalkers, they just right-click right by them, and when Dark was stuck with these Corruptors, and he made a bad judgment call, and that's one of the key moments in a game like that, is Zerg attacks in, loses a big chunk of his army, but then remaxes, and the second or third attack in that process is supposed to wipe the army out. But yeah, he had too many Corruptors, and there was nothing he could do with him to allow him to get ahead in the game.
Dark's idea wasn't bad. Generally, as Protoss, you're afraid of the Zerg air army, so you will remax on air, but Stats made a very decisive move, and Dark's prediction of how Stats would play that Supreme late game tech switch was wrong. And when you spend all your money, like think about how much money 36 Corruptors cost. He just doesn't have enough to go Ultra Ling. He doesn't have enough to get into some Lurkers or something like that. So that was a very clever move by Stats, a crazy game. Not sure how many of those we'll see throughout the tournament, but definitely a fun one to start off the day.
By the way, I mean, this is the point where you're either going to move on in this tournament or you're out. So this is very important for these two. Dark and some hot water. Let's go to game number 2 here. Stats versus Dark. In the bottom right, in the red, he needs to win this game and the next. He is Dark. And in the upper left, in the blue, our Protoss player with a 1-0 lead. He is Stats.
Really awesome first game, and how crazy would that be if it's Stats that moves on in first place in this group? Like, Stats is a great player, and in just about any group in any tournament in the world, I could put him as the first place guy, right? But Dark is someone we're all looking at, like, if a Zerg wins BlizzCon, it's probably going to be Dark, right? Like, this is the best Zerg in the world right now. He's looking for that victory. He wants to be one of the best there ever was, and a BlizzCon victory goes a long way towards that. But I mean, the way that Stats is playing this morning, he looks to be on fire, man. Great decision-making, micro, macro, everything.
I mean, over on the couch, everybody was saying Dark was probably going to win this, and if I was over there, I would have said the same thing. I mean, I think Dark is just so impressive in the late game, but seeing how Stats handled that back there, I got to say, it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
He really knew how to go all the way to the end of the game and make all the right decisions.
You know, the way I think about Stats as well, though, is that even though it would be kind of crazy if he takes this, you're never really surprised. Like, he's such a good player that, like, even if he beats Dark, we're like, oh, wow, I did expect Dark, but, like, well, you know, Stats is, you know, he's definitely top 4-ish, top 8-ish material in any tournament. So definitely someone to be reckoned with, but still doesn't have that big championship that he's looking for. Now looking at this game, a little bit of a hatchery block went down from Stats early on, so Dark will be going for slightly quicker Zergling speed. It's not the biggest deal for Dark. He oftentimes opens with things like that anyways just to be extra safe, but will he turn it into aggression is the big question.
I'm betting that Dark will probably play kind of like he did in the last game. Remember that the last game, a lot of the makeup of the last game 1 was due to the map. That map forces that style of play. This map's a little bit different. There's a lot more open area in the middle. You can expand to the upper right or the bottom left on either side. It's more of a free flow map. And so this game, I think if Dark plays similar to what we've always seen with Dark, which is just get
big
bigger,
macro game,
macro up, you know, harass and take out probes, and just get further and further ahead. Win the race little by little until eventually you're way ahead. I think it might be tougher for Stats this time around. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I would agree with you on that. Like, just generally speaking, New Gettysburg, a lot of Protoss is like that map in every matchup, just because you can get into, like, the really late game. Protoss can be a little bit fragile early on, and some of these timing attacks that we see out of Zerg and Terran can catch them off guard. But when you hit, like, all of your tech, you feel very powerful as Protoss. So, you know, I think Stats will be able to cope. It looks like Dark is going to be able to scout that this is most likely going to be a quick Glaives rush here and some adept harassment.
So we have the Baneling's Nest coming down here now. Obviously, Dark, he's that kind of Zerg player that is always hyper-vigilant. Again, it goes back to that proper Zerg style of play. He just has one eye in your base all the time, the other one making sure he's got the right number of drones back at his. And it looks like now Stats is going to go ahead and take this third base up here. He has enough adepts to defend this, and he may go for a timing later. He may just try to react to Dark. I always feel that, like, when you play Protoss, for instance, against Zerg, the hardest way to play is that reactive style.
Yeah.
I think most people would agree with that. Timing attacks are obviously very difficult, but when you want to go all the way to the end of the game and keep responding to Zerg, that's really tough, especially somebody like Dark who's so calculated.
He certainly is, and we're seeing him calculate right now, right? He just got Overlord speed, and he's doing a drop right as Glaives moves out. So if your cooldown is on a warp, the cooldown on the warp gate is down, you can't warp in units to deal with the Zergling drop. So this could end up doing a good amount of damage. And in the meantime, the Adepts not getting that much done across the map.
Yeah, this is unfortunate because he's going to lose the majority of those, and he's actually going to lose probes like this as well. Now, Dark knew that these things were going to come in when the Adepts are going to move out. It's very well timed out, and Artosis, you're 100% right. When you do that warp in somewhere else on the map, that cooldown takes a while, and there's nothing Protoss can do about that. Once you've started warping in there, that's
Absolutely. And the Mothership Core is almost always over at the third base to protect it because there's nothing there except pylons. So this is kind of one of the new counters that we're seeing out of Zergs against this early 7 Adept harassment.
Yeah.
And truth be told, Dark got more damage done there than Stats did.
Well, Dark, not surprisingly, deflected the attack. I feel like one thing that if you're a pro gamer against Dark, you always have to be careful about is never overextend. That's really what he wants you to do for most of the game, is overextend. ZVP rather is a tightrope block a lot of times. You're trying to get your drones, but at the same time, you're making sure that you can defend any attack. And if a Protoss gets too confident, especially against a player like Dark, oversteps the boundaries, suddenly the Protoss is hugely penalized, loses a bunch of units, and that means the Dark starts growing that much faster.
Yeah, and if you lose that much units even one time, it can spell death. Now, an Overlord drop coming in, there's
No, it's
actually nothing
empty.
in it.
I love it.
Yeah.
This is great. You know, he knows that he's going to pull probes no matter what, but it's early enough in the game, he probably doesn't have anything there to drive the Overlord back. And so just sending the Overlord up there like that
That's cheap.
is enough. Yeah. And there's no way. Stats might go, for this entire series, never knowing that there was nothing in there. But it's super smart play.
Yeah, and it's okay for him to even know that that's there to counter an Overlord drop at a mineral line. Like, either you have to make a few cannons or have like 3 stalkers there to shoot it down, or the Mothership Core. Okay. So this is really annoying for Stats. This time it's a real drop.
No, this time it's real. Does he know?
Oh my god.
Oh my god, it worked! Well, it works when it blows up the probes. It works when it blows up the probes, guys. Hope you guys are taking notes at home.
Yeah.
But that was really smart.
Yeah, no,
I wish it actually connected.
He forced a runaway, a lot of mana to be used, but Dark will be back. He's getting his Baneling speed, and he is relentless in attacking, especially the third base, because that is your freshest set of minerals. So, we'll see if Stats walls everything off well, but in the meantime, Stats is trying to get a little bit of harassment done with this Warp Prism with a few Adepts in it as well.
Just poking in whenever he can. Dark now, I believe, is fourth base over here, just at the bottom. And he's going to have a few more drones there in just a little bit. He's going to continue to drone up. But for the time being, they both poked in, haven't done too much damage.
No.
The game's just going to continue onward as they get all the other tech they can, all the upgrades they can to be a powerful force in the late game.
A lot of respect shown by each side here once again, where, they're not really trying to kill each other because they know that each of them knows how to hold on too well, and there is a defender's advantage. So everyone wants to, just kind of skirt along with as few units as possible, some very light harassment while expanding and upgrading and macroing.
You can see the Ravagers roaming around. That really keeps the Protoss from being uncomfortable enough to not try to warp in with a Warp Prism anywhere in the proximity of the Zerg. So instead, he's just going to come by here, drop a few Adepts, try to get a drone here and there, and try to survey what the army is like here. Of course, also scouting with hallucinated Phoenixes as well.
Now, it looks like Archon Charge is the unit composition of the day here for Stats, and that can do very well against Ling Baneling and Ravagers as well, which Dark is pretty well known for right now, uses quite often. In fact, that is what he's going for. But we don't really see Immortals yet. Instead, he's getting a little bit quicker Psystorm. But with Dark actually going into Hive right now, it's about to finish, and having this many melee upgrades, I think he's going to throw down an Ultralisk Cavern right away. And if you don't have Immortals against Ultralisks, the Zerg will crush your army.
Yeah, that's very true. Ultras comboed. Ultras by themselves. Oh, nice. Almost got that. Ultras alone are actually just horrible units. If you
Yeah.
just have one Ultra, it doesn't do anything. But, oh my God, nicely done. Okay, there we go. 10 probes taken out. I was hoping
It
there was going to be a
worked!
glitch in the Matrix and it doesn't connect again, but it worked out. But anyways, yeah, Ultras alone are just not strong.
No,
They're not strong at all. But if you combo
they're
that with
team players.
yeah, but if you combo that with a bunch of Lings or Roaches and they can get in there and get a surround on the amount of damage they do is incredibly powerful. So Protoss has to get those Immortals out, but of course Immortals are so clunky. Zerg is going to be trying to target that down over and over and over again.
Well, he has a few Immortals, so we'll see how that works out for him. The Ultros Cavern is going to be finishing up here. Adrenal Glands halfway done for those Zerglings. A lot of Zerglings coming in over here, but the Zealots will help to push those back. The Banelings coming in, but of course Storm and Archon is a good counter to that.
Nice connect, though, with those Corrosive Biles. He's going to back up here. He might even want to get that one Archon. That's super low.
I think he does want to pick that off. Coming back right now with those Banelings. Uh-oh. Baneling rolls through that front wall, and a ton of Zerglings going into the main base now.
He's going to come up here. Not that many probes, but this is definitely going to be a huge distraction. He can take on some of that tech up there. Meanwhile, Greg Corrosive Biles on the warping in units. I don't know if there's going to be enough to defend. I know that Dark is already remaking a huge army. We see Ultras on the way as well as a bunch of Lings that could allow him to completely smash the fourth base up there, and that might knock stats out of this game economically.
No, these Zerglings in the main base being such a pain right now for stats. He actually skipped making a Dark Shrine this game, so doesn't have any easy way to clean these up efficiently. Has to warp in quite a few Zealots, put down some overcharges and whatnot, but he is chasing back Stats' army. The thing is, Dark's army. The thing is, the Ultras are out, and Zealots, it would be an understatement to say that they're bad against Ultras and Banelings.
Yeah, they're like, they're not going to really do anything. They're going to get chewed up right away. This may be the killing blow. Let's see if Stats can hang on. The supplies right now, 112 to 179. And with Ultras here, I don't think the Protoss army, it's not even that it's not sophisticated enough, it's not even big enough to really deal with this.
Well, I mean, a few Stalkers mixed in here. Psystorm's going down, but more and more Banelings rolling forward. The Archon doing his best to tank some of this damage from the Ultras, but these Ultras are just doing ridiculous amounts of damage to the Stalker army, cleaning it up. 13, 15 probes going down to
There it is.
GG.
GG, nicely done there by Dark. That was the game I was expecting to see from Dark there in game one. So it's all going to come down to one game. Whatever the best PvZ or ZVP builds, strats, styles that these guys have, they're going to be showing it to us right now because everything is on the line.
You know what? I feel like that game mostly comes down to the Baneling bust in the front where the Zerglings ran in. That kind of pulled all of the attention of Stats all over the place, and then the Ravagers did such a great job at that fourth base, killing Warpins. Stats wasn't able to really get his army together. The Immortals got kind of wasted. Like you said, he was trying to target those down before the Ultras came out. So Dark was really in control this game. Again, Stats showing so much respect to Dark that he wasn't attacking at all. Maybe he needs to attack in this third game. He's been playing crazily passive.
Very true. I do want to talk. It was not the most memorable moment, but I think we saw in the very early part of the game those Adepts coming out and overextending. That was actually really important.
Yeah, that's true.
Because he did not have very much to defend everywhere. We saw Dark knew he could fly in with an Overlord that was empty, for instance, and scare away probes. And I think in this game, if we're going to see Stats win, he just cannot make any mistakes against Dark.
Yeah.
I hate playing against it because it makes me crazy, but these good Zergs, when you know that you have to pressure them, that's your whole role as Protoss early on. Pressure them. If they weren't ready, go for the kill. But these really good Zergs, man, you make one misstep. You move your Adepts out just, a few squares too far.
Yeah.
A little bit too close down the ramp, and then you lose it. You lose a huge chunk of your army, and you know that there's no way, well, not no way, but it's going to be very difficult to try to recover from that.
Yeah. Truthfully, after the initial Adept pressure, all he did pressure-wise was the one Warp Prism just kind of dropping off 3 Adepts, picking them back up. Not very much damage, not like a ton of scouting, not really a whole lot of anything out of Stats. He was just trying to build up into that very late-game army.
Yeah, it never really did that much. On top of that, the Baneling harass was quite good. I know there was that one moment it didn't connect, but he was definitely keeping him busy. And Stats was really not going to catch up after that, and that's how Dark closed it out. We're going to go to a short break. When we return, we're going to go to game number 3 here in the WCS Global Championship. Stay tuned. Welcome back, guys. That wasn't so bad. What was that, like a minute 15?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Minute
As
28.
short as we could make it. We have both players in the game. Well, it's about to load up, so we're going to be going into this right away. I don't know who's going to win this, to be honest. It's really tough. Stats look so strong in Game 1, going all the way to the end game there in PBZ. But in that Game 2, I mean, Dark really knew how to dismember Stats when he just made one basic mistake early on.
Yeah.
It started to snowball.
It really did that, and that's Dark for you. Like, you have to play a near perfect game if you want to stay at his level and fight him. And Stats did do that in Game 1, so we'll see if he can do it in Game 3. It is going to be Apotheosis, another just huge map, so we could see something like Game 1 again, possibly.
Could be pretty crazy, guys. Let's go ahead and go into game number 3. Everything is on the line right now. This is Dark versus Stats. In the upper left, in the red, our Zerg player. He is Dark. And in the bottom right, in the blue, our Protoss player. He is Stats.
Okay.
Hi, Artosis.
Apotheosis. Hi, Tasteless. How are you doing?
I'm good, man.
Yeah?
I'm really happy with this series so far.
No, it's very
This has been
good.
really cool.
It's a good way to open the day, and
Yeah.
I think the day is only going to get better. Guys, did you know that Neeb versus Zest is next?
What?
And Zest is the best Protoss in the world, but Neeb crushed him at Kespa Cup, and now they're going to play again for a spot in the top 8.
Revenge match.
Oh my god.
Cannot wait.
And in the meantime, we have it tied up 1-1, Dark versus Sets. This is like a stupid good day of StarCraft.
I know.
You shouldn't be doing anything else if you're at work.
Call in sick.
Tell them you're sick. If you have to go to work, call in
It's time
sick.
to play hooky.
I mean, hopefully you can help
Look,
us spread
maybe,
the word.
maybe you'll lose your job. You can get another job. There's
Yeah.
lots of other jobs, but
This match won't
this is
ever
only
happen
going to happen
again.
once a year.
Yeah.
So I hope your priorities are straight or all straightened
You
out,
could
guys.
you could have like 20 jobs in a year. It's possible.
Yeah, yeah.
But
this
you're only going to have one
That's
World
right.
Championship of StarCraft in a year. So make your choices and live with them. So, okay.
Do the right thing.
Yeah, really, guys, get out there. Help us spread the word. A lot of people don't realize that, the global finals have already started.
Yeah,
Because
that
everyone's
we
like,
have
oh,
this
yeah, BlizzCon.
pre-week.
It's at BlizzCon. But we have this thing where we eliminate half the players the week before. And we're in day 3, and today and tomorrow are going to be the best days yet. The Foreigners lead map-wise 10-9. It's like a crazy, crazy set of stories.
I do want to say, because this game hasn't really picked up yet, that it's very exciting to see that non-Koreans are doing better and better and better in StarCraft 2. They really are catching up to the Koreans. And not just Neeb. We've had plenty of games here in the last 2 days that have been fantastic.
Yeah, I never thought I'd actually see the day that this is the way it is, but this is the way it is, and I'm happy to be here to see this day. So, it's exceeding all expectations so far. But let's talk about this map a little bit. Apotheosis is a map we don't see as often, and it definitely can be a weird one because it is so long, and it has this gold base here. There's like basically 2 successful ways that Protoss plays. One is an Adept all-in. Like, you just go mass Adepts because you're like, well, I have gold minerals, and gold minerals are worth a lot, and I can start this very early because my pro production does not have to be as heavy. And that's definitely a popular way to play, but it's a little bit easy to predict. The other is because it is such a big map, it's so long, that you can play it kind of like New Gettysburg, where you're like, I am going to turtle forever. There's going to be cannons and Psystorm and Tempest and all that, and make that ultimate army against Zerg. So those are the 2 most likely things to see from Stats here.
And there's something else that I want to highlight really quickly on this map. It's not like a square. It's actually a rectangle. It's narrow on the sides. That means that Zerg, after a little bit, is actually expanding, in this case, towards the south.
Yes.
And ideally, Zergs always want to be expanding away from their opponent. If the map is just incredibly huge, a lot of people would say that's where Zerg is most comfortable. You don't want to be on a very, very tight map. That's why you don't have these super small maps in StarCraft 2, because Zergs would just get rushed and die. But as this game goes on, the expansions that Dark is going to be relying on that are going to be the most important if we do go into late game are going to be the most pokeable bases here for Stats.
Yeah, and that can make it in the very late game quite nice for Protoss. You can definitely play a very turtle-based game, but right now Dark is putting on a lot of pressure. He's making some Banelings, a lot of Zerglings flooding across the map here. Look how many Banelings he has. It looks like he's going to be going for a bust.
Okay. He is going to try to do it right now, actually. Here come those Banelings moving up. We actually have a drop over here as well. That first adept does go down. The Glaives are about to finish, but not if that pylon is destroyed first.
This is a huge deal right now. Will Glaives actually end up finishing? It does.
Just in time. The Banelings are now moving over here into the main. We did have a drop as well, taking out these pylons. Right now, Stats in a lot of trouble.
This is so painful right now for Stats, losing a lot of probes. Luckily, his gold base is still mining well. Another overcharge comes down. The Baneling gets picked off. That's really good. Now these glaive-filled adepts will be able to push everything off.
Banelings coming up now. More probes that are already bruised are about to take some more damage. It's up to 20 now, and some of those are still at 1 HP. Oh my God, 27, 28.
That is just too much damage. More Lings going into this main base right again. Stats is trying to go into double starport, but the amount of probe losses he's taken, he barely has any economy right now. Just 13 probes left.
That's right, and plenty of those probes aren't even mining. They're on the run. We actually have, looks like a counter over here of Adepts trying to come up. I don't believe this will work, but it is Stats after all. He's pretty solid with his control of these. He's going to move up here. I believe if he has enough Banelings, though, he can just take these Adepts out. But this is the last attempt here by Stats to try to balance this game out.
Just the number of Lings here is crazy, and he will surround these Adepts, wiping them out very quickly with 40 probes gone.
I think
that has to be it, man. Yeah, this should be game. This should be series.
GG. Wow.
A very fast and furious one there in game number 3. Dark taking it out, advancing in first place in Group A, kind of as people expected.
One thing you got to remember is that although Dark can play that endgame macro style, he can also just do these all-ins. And that's what makes him so scary. He's the full, complete Zerg package.
Yeah, he is so scary and definitely one of the big favorites here. It's hard to play against a guy like this that can go complete late game, has like a perfect mid game, or can do an all in like that. And you know, Stats, unfortunately for him, he chose a strategy where he didn't make quite as many units. He was going into double Stargate, so you know, he's trying to alter his play a lot. He's trying to show some variety to take out such a high-end player, but it backfires this time.
We're going to go to a short break, guys, but don't go away. We got more great games coming up for you here at the WCS Global Championships.
Heroes of Azeroth, I have witnessed our end. Demonic armies spilling over the horizon and onto our shores. Heed my warning. The Burning Legion has returned. Stronger, more determined than ever before. These demons seek to annihilate everything upon Azeroth. No single person can stand against the Legion alone. And so you came to me. I will deal with these intruders. No, she wouldn't. I knew we couldn't trust her!
In the end, death claims us all.
The Legion cannot be stopped. Our time is short. Now go. But remember, should you fail, all worlds will burn.
And now finally on the third day here at the WCS Global Finals, we do have our first player moving on to the quarterfinals. So first of all, congratulations, Dark. When I spoke with you a few days ago, you said that you felt that your biggest obstacle would be the round of 16. And that if you were able to move on from here, you would feel a lot more confident and that you could feel that you could even just become the champion. So now that you are through to the quarterfinals, are you feeling very comfortable now? 이제 저는 인터뷰했을 때 16강이 제일 가장 큰 산이라고 얘기하셨잖아요. 이제 8강까지만 진출을 하면 우승할 수 있다 이렇게 얘기를 하셨는데 이제 8강 진출했으니까 마음이 엄청 편하세요?
굉장히 편하고요. 16강 할 때도 되게 긴장이 많이 돼서 첫 경기도 솔직히 제가 이긴 건데 실수를 좀 했거든요. 그래서 16강 징크스가 아직도 있나 싶었는데 이렇게 잘 풀려가지고 다행인 것 같아요.
Says, definitely, I feel very comfortable. Throughout the round of 16, I was feeling really, really nervous. And even in the first game against Stats today, I felt very nervous. And it was a game where it was mine and I let it go. So I was very upset about that. But I really feel like I finally broke the round of 16 jinx that I feel I have. So I'm very, very happy about that. And now, speaking about Stats, he's a player that you've played multiple times this year. In fact, you guys have played in the finals of 2 different tournaments twice already. Because of that, I'm wondering, coming into today's game, were you feeling pretty comfortable as it's a player that you do have experience playing against? And was there anything special that you prepared? 이제 이번 연에 김디업 선수와 이제 자주 만났었잖아요. 결승전에서도 2번 만나고 그렇기 때문에 이제 아는 선수니까 좀 편하게 준비를 했는지 아니면 뭐 특별하게 뭐 이렇게 하면 할 수 있겠다 이렇게 생각을 하셨는지.
대엽이 형이 스타일이 좀 알면 알수록 좀 꼬이는 스타일이요. 그래서 좀 뭐라 해야 되지? 좀 과감하게 하려고 준비를 해왔고요. 그리고 대엽이 형이 노련함이 있어서 좀 힘들 거라 생각을 했는데 그래도 제가 준비해온 게 더 노련했던 것 같아요.
So he says, Stats is one of those players as the more you get to know his style, he's a very difficult player to prepare against, and I just knew I had to prepare myself mentally against that. And even today, as I played against him, I could definitely feel that, but I just feel that I was more prepared and my strategies worked better, and that's why it worked. And now moving forward, one of the favorites that a lot of people called out for this tournament was Solar, but yesterday he was actually eliminated. So now I'm wondering, out of the players that are left, is there a particular player that you're worried about? 어저께 많은 사람들이 얘기했던 우승 후보들 중에서 강민수 선수가 탈락을 했어요. 그래서 이제 남은 선수들 중에서 혹시 걱정되는 선수 있나요?
걱정되는 선수는 없고요. 그리고 제가 원래 블리즈컨 오기 전에도 제 자신과의 싸움이라고 생각을 하고 있었고 이제 16강에서 8강으로 올라간 만큼 더더욱 자신감이 쌓여서 우승할 수 있을 것 같아요.
Says, no, actually, there is not a player that I am worried about. Coming into this tournament, the WCS Global Finals, I thought of this tournament more as a test with myself. I felt that as long as I can get through the round of 16, as that is what I've previously and historically struggled with the most, then I could do well. And now I'm feeling a lot of confidence now that I am through to the quarterfinals. So I'm feeling very confident that I can become the WCS Global Finals champion. So congratulations again, Dark. You are the first player that will be moving on to the quarterfinals. Apollo, it's head back to you.
Thank you very much, Smix. What else can we say other than it worked? Dark goes through to the next stage, and we are first player to play at BlizzCon. Fantastic performance from him. Todd, what are your thoughts overall from Dark?
You just said it. It worked. He went for the Banelings and the drop, and I don't know, Stats. After a great game number 1, like I really liked the way he identified there was a lot of corruptors and closed things out. His second game, he just didn't see those Banelings coming, and
So it started it with such a close game here, such a tight first map. It was. We spoke about it while it was happening. It was very, very standard macro up into the late game.
No, this first game was actually awesome, and I think Stats looked really incredibly good from the beginning to the end. I think that one moment, Artosis mentioned it during the cast, very important. Dark wanted to make sure he had enough Corruptors, so he made 36. Well, that was definitely enough. But then Stats is like, well, cool, here are 5 Archons. I'm just going to make Blink Stalkers from this point on. And yes, there were a couple of Zerglings, there were a couple of Ultras, but not enough to go up against that much Protoss ground production. And it was a really cool game, and I must say this was the best game of Stats so far in this tournament. Game 2, however, that's when things connected. And it worked, boys.
Nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the greatest StarCraft that I think has ever been commentated. So close, yet so far. Then finally later, it did in fact work. But this series just got out of hand. We saw it all, right? The early aggression, the non-stop drops, the Baneling harass, and I mean, we got to see a mothership with Mass Void Ray as well, which you don't get to see enough of.
The best thing about this is that we unlocked Roddy's final laugh. It finally came into the broadcast because of all of this.
The second game was super sick, and the third game I think is really cool about this one. Jeff was watching this backstage, and Jeff is like, I don't understand, because if you play NA ladder, you're gonna die against Zerglings and Banelings every single time you do it. And Dark is like, well, those NA players, they definitely know what they're doing. So he went for it, and I think that it's a little bit sad for Stats, Because if you remember, he did the exact same opening against Nut, but back then he went for a super fast Stargate, even before Warp Gate. And then if you open up with an Oracle and follow it up with a Void Ray, the Void Ray can shut down the Dropper Lords, and then the Oracle can take care of the Link Floods. And it's never an easy hold, obviously, but I think it's a lot more doable than with this opening. It's not impossible, but I think it's very hard to hold.
The emergency double Stargate came in there way too late, obviously, and that's the downfall for Stats. He's not out of the tournament, obviously. He goes through to the elimination or decider match, should I say. But
one thing to take away from this series is that it almost feels a little too normal to see Dark advance, right, in first place here. We hyped him up a lot, but I have to say, like, mad props to him after this first game for really staying in it and doing exactly what he needed to do, really. Like, in game number 2, he stayed composed, went exactly for the right drops, and stop, please stop. And then game 3, he's like, well, I've been playing, you know, fairly standard and stuff. I haven't been that aggressive. I've already seen him do a build that I think I could punish. I'm just going to go Zergling Baneling, and it's going to work out.
He did indeed. And any final thoughts here, Kev, on that series? I mean, the next one that we've got lined up, I'm sure you can see behind us, Neeb setting up currently going to be taking on Zest.
I mean, obviously we're having a little bit of a giggle about Game 2, but the beginning of Game 2 is absolutely worth mentioning. The way that he shut down the Adept Aggression, I think Frozen Temple is the best map for the 1-gate Twilight, 2-more gate opening, and he just shut it down so incredibly good with just a few defensive Banes while creating chaos on the other side of the map. And what Taze has mentioned, and it's really important, is that indeed the Warp-In was used at home, so it was a little bit easier to deal with those Zergling drops. But because they were used at home, he also, obviously, the push in the front was a little bit weaker. And for Protoss, it's very hard to fight at 2 positions at once, while the Lynx, you know, you just send them in and you hope they clean it up. While Adepts, you have to run away a little bit, you have to shoot. So I think the opening from Dark, again, was super smart. This time it was not burrow play, but it did work out. And one absolute last thing, I think the Nidus play on New Gettysburg, like we often talk about something, when it works, I'm not doing this on purpose, but you know, if somebody uses something we don't see all the time, we compliment him on it. Now, the Nidus play did not work out, but I still really appreciate him trying. Against Tempest, against Void Rays, he was really looking for an opening. And I must say, just kudos to Stats, man, the way he was shutting that down over and over again with DTs and Stalkers. Because I'm often watching these games, it's like, why don't we see more Nidus play? Well, I mean, Stats showed us perhaps why we didn't see it, but I still liked that Dark tried that game.
So, I mean, now the game's finished, we can start to just kind of look at the aftermath here. Stats versus Drogo. It's going to be happening tomorrow, do you think about? Protoss versus Protoss, first game of the day tomorrow. And now Dark's the first player to qualify for and to play at BlizzCon next weekend. I think it's an interesting development to kind of sit back past game. But so, yeah, that's...
The other interesting thing to keep in mind in regards to that is a lot of the foreigners beating Koreans has been in the mirror matchups so far. So definitely a matchup that I would probably give better odds for Drogo to make the upset than if he were to play against Dark again. So he's got to be happy about that.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. We're going to take a very quick break. When we return, though, is a game that I'm sure all of you are very excited for. It's going to be Neeb taking on Zest in a big series. We'll be right back.